Hello everyone, this is Al from BluFo. I'm excited to jump into this with you today. We're going to create our first web page and display some text on it to show you how HTML works. But before we do that, there's a little bit of setup that has to happen first. The first thing you'll need is an IDE or code editor. You can use the code editor of your choice, but in this tutorial, I'm going to be using VS Code. And basically what that's going to help you do is write your code. It's going to help you write code more quickly and efficiently than you would without it. So I suggest you use VS Code to follow along. To do that, go to the VS Code website. I'll include a link in the description, but you go there, you find the version for you, download, install, and you'll be ready to go. Once you're in VS Code, I've created a project folder. I've called mine First Website, but if you're building your website for a specific purpose, give it a name that's associated with your website. And at the moment, there's nothing in there. It's just an empty folder, an empty directory. But we're of course going to add to that very shortly. And then the last thing you're going to need is you're going to need to serve your website. Whether you're working in a development environment or in a production environment, you're going to somehow have to serve that site so you can view it. The easiest way to do that in VS Code is with an extension. So I'm going to click on this extensions button over here, and I'm going to search for Live Server. And there it is. You click on it. Now I already have it installed, but if you don't have it installed, there's an option here to install it. Go ahead and do that, and we'll be set up and ready to go. I'm going to go back to the project folder, and we'll get started creating that first HTML page. To do that, I'm going to click on the new file button, and I'm going to call this index.html. Anytime you're building a website, you're going to need at least one HTML page. That's going to usually be called index.html. However, as your website grows and you maybe add more pages, you might have more HTML files. You'll see once I've done that, it's created an empty file, and it's changed this little icon here to indicate that it's an HTML file. You may also remember from our introductory program that HTML is sort of like the frame, or you might call it the skeleton of your website, right? This is the bare bones. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start creating that skeleton. And this is really easy to do in VS Code. If you're not using VS Code, this shortcut probably won't work, but I'm going to show you how to do it here. And it's super simple. We're going to type an exclamation point. You see there's a little drop down. And I'm going to hit enter, and boom, just like that, it's created the start of our skeleton, right? Again, if you're not using VS Code, you may want to type all of this out. You may have to type all of that out, but that's a great practice as well. If you're trying to learn code, the best way to learn it is by doing it, by typing it out. It's just going to help you remember it a lot easier, and you're going to be a much better programmer. But that shortcut is just too short, so we used it. Now, don't let this be intimidating to you. If you've never been exposed to computer code before or HTML, this might look a little bit confusing, but it's fine. We're going to learn all of that. It's really not that complicated. And truthfully, even if you've never looked at code before, you can probably start to kind of figure out what's going on here, right? So if you take a look, you see head written here a couple of times. And again, if we're using our human body analogy, you might think, okay, head probably contains some vital information about our website, right? And then you also have body down here, and you might think, okay, well, body, that's probably going to be the bulk of our code, right? Is in the body, and that's where all of the other limbs and body parts are going to be, right? So if we're going to stick with that analogy, you can already start to see how this web page is coming together. Now, I want to make two quick changes here just to show you how this all works. And this is going to be very simple, but the first thing I want to do is highlight where it says document here. This is the title of the page. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to give it a title for my page. I'm going to call this First Website Tutorial, exclamation point, make it a little bit exciting. And then the second change I'm going to make is down here between these two body tags. I'm just going to put some text. I'm going to say excited to build my first website. And we'll give it another exclamation point. I'm going to Control S or Command S to save the page. You're going to want to do that often as you're programming. And then the last thing we need to do is serve this page so we can view it. And that's where that live server extension comes in. So to activate that, I'm just going to go to the bottom right-hand corner of my VS Code, and I'm going to click on Go Live. This will take a moment to start, and there it is. There's our first web page. You can see where I changed the title. It says First Website Tutorial with my exclamation point. And then here's the text I put in the body. Excited to build my first website. It really is that simple. We went from nothing to having a web page with a title and some text in a matter of no time. And now we can move on to the next step. So the last thing I want to do in this video is go back to VS Code and let's talk about what actually makes up a web page. Well, a web page is made up of elements. Elements may include headers, images, navigation bars, paragraphs, list, and a whole bunch of other things. And the way you can tell what an element is in our code is through tags. So what's an HTML tag? Well, an HTML tag is any one of these little bracket things with some text in between it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this code here, this text that we put in, just so we can take a closer look at this body tag. Now, most HTML tags are going to have an opening tag and a closing tag. If we take a look at this opening tag, it's got these two brackets. So it's a less than symbol, the name of the tag, in this case body, and then a greater than symbol. And then the closing tag is very similar, except it has a slash in it. So it's going to be a bracket slash the tag name and then a closing bracket. And what you want to display is going to be between there. The other thing you can do with tags is you can nest tags. So if you have an element and you want to put another element inside of it, you can do that. You just have to put the tags inside the other tags. And we're going to do that right now. I'm going to, again, show you a very simple example. What I'm going to do is hit Tab to create a little bit of space there. And this is something you want to get into a habit of doing when you're writing code, is you want to have the space reflect your page. That tab is not going to show up on the web page, but it's going to make my code much more readable because I can see when there's an element inside another element. So I hit Tab and I'm going to create a new element. So I'm going to type in that little bracket and you can see where VS Code has this little drop down. It's showing me all of the tags that I could put into the area, and there's a lot of them. I'm only going to scratch the surface in this tutorial, and that's a good thing. Again, don't be intimidated by it. We're going to do a lot with a little, but there's always a lot more out there that you can go learn, which is great. I just want to have a header tag. I want to have an H1 header tag. So I'm going to type that, and then I'm going to close that bracket, and you can see where VS Code actually puts in that closing tag for me. That's where your IDE can make things very quick and easy for you. And now I'm going to put in some text. So I'm going to say website tutorial, and just to show something a little bit different, I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to create an H2 header 2 tag that's going to be a little bit smaller. So we're going to say building websites from scratch. And why not? We'll give it an exclamation point. Again, very simple, right? You can see we have our body tag, and inside of that body tag, we have an H1 tag and an H2 tag. I'm going to go ahead and save it again. And now we'll go back to our web browser. And there it is, our H1 header tag and our H2 header tag. A little bit smaller text. It's great. It's very simple. In the next video, we're going to move on to some more complex stuff.